Can you believe a set of wind chimes could land someone in handcuffs? That's exactly what went down last summer in my quiet little corner of Willow Creek Estates, where I thought I'd found the perfect suburban dream home. I'm Nathan, by the way, and this story is about how a gentle tinkle in the breeze turned into a full-blown neighborhood scandal, complete with trespassing, assault, and a police car pulling away with the HOA queen herself. I just moved into my new place, a cozy house with a tidy garden shaded by a gorgeous cherry blossom tree. The previous owners left behind a set of handcrafted bronze wind chimes hanging from its branches. Their soft, melodic clinks were like something out of a meditation app, calming, peaceful, perfect for drifting off to sleep on warm, breezy nights. I loved them. But I had no idea those chimes were about to make me public enemy number one in the eyes of Margaret Ellison, the iron-fisted president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. Around here, folks whispered her nickname Marge behind her back, but to her face? It was always Mrs. Ellison or, if you were feeling fancy, Madam President. I'd been there about a month when I first met her. It was during one of her infamous compliance patrols. Picture a woman in her mid-50s, sharp brunette bob, lips always pinched like she'd just bitten into a lemon. That morning, she was decked out in a crisp navy blazer, clutching a clipboard like it was a scepter. She stopped at every house, scribbling notes, but when she got to mine, she lingered, writing furiously. Curiosity got the better of me, so I stepped outside with a friendly wave. "Morning! I'm Nathan, just settled in a few weeks ago." She barely looked up, her smile as cold as a winter wind. "Mr. Carter? I'm Margaret Ellison, president of the Willow Creek HOA. Your property has multiple violations that need immediate attention." Her voice was all business, like she was scolding a kid caught sneaking cookies. I blinked, caught off guard but trying to stay polite. "Violations? I had no idea. What's the issue?" She thrust the clipboard at me like it was EVY Denke in a courtroom. "Your lawn is a 1/4 inch over the 3.5-inch limit in Section 6, Paragraph 4 of our bylaws. Your mailbox doesn't match the approved Willow Creek design. And those," she jabbed a manicured finger at my wind chimes, her nose wrinkling in disgust, "are a noise violation." I glanced at the chimes, which were barely whispering in the soft morning breeze. "They're pretty quiet," I said, keeping my tone light. "I can't imagine they're bothering anyone." Her eyes narrowed, and I swear her nostrils flared. "The bylaws prohibit audible devices in front yards without board approval. Remove them immediately, or you'll face a $75 daily fine." I'm usually a laid-back guy, but something about her high and mighty attitude got under my skin. Still, I kept my cool. "I'd like to review the bylaws on that. Could you point me to the specific rule about wind chimes? I don't recall seeing it in the welcome packet." Her lips tightened into a thin line, clearly not used to pushback. "Section 11, Paragraph 9 covers all audible disturbances. I suggest you study our regulations, Mr. Carter. We take our standards seriously here." With that, she spun on her heel and marched off, leaving me with a citation slip and a bad taste in my mouth. That night, I pored over the HOA rulebook. Just as I suspected, there was no mention of wind chimes. The noise ordinance she'd cited only applied to excessive noise like construction equipment, blaring stereos, or yapping dogs between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. My chimes? They were about as loud as a rustling leaf. I decided to keep them up and see how far she'd push this. I didn't have to wait long. The next Saturday, as I sipped coffee on my porch, Margaret showed up with 2 HOA board members in tow, a jittery guy named Greg and a stone-faced woman called Evelyn. Margaret, clipboard in hand, looked like she'd already won. "Mr. Carter," she announced loud enough for the whole street to hear, "we've received numerous complaints about your wind chimes. The board held an emergency meeting and voted to impose immediate fines if they're not removed today." I noticed my neighbors peeking through their curtains, looking more confused than upset. Setting my mug down, I stayed calm. "Can you tell me how many complaints you've got and let me see them? I've actually had neighbors tell me they like the chimes." Her smug smile flickered. The complaints are confidential, but rest assured, they're significant. I nodded unfazed. I went through the bylaws, and there's no rule against wind chimes. The noise ordinance only covers loud stuff at night. These chimes are soft. Want to check the decibel level? I've got an app for that. Greg shifted uncomfortably, and Evelyn shot Margaret a sideways glance. Margaret's cheeks flushed, clashing with her coral sweater. The board has the authority to interpret bylaws to uphold community standards, she snapped, her voice climbing. We've deemed your chimes a violation. I held my ground, still polite but firm. I respect your VYEW, but I disagree with that interpretation. If you want to propose a new rule about wind chimes, I'll vote on it at the next meeting. Until then, I don't see a basis for fines. Margaret wasn't used to defiance. Her eyes flicked between me and the chimes, which tinkled faintly in the breeze. This is your final warning, Mr. Carter, she said, barely containing her fury. Remove them by dusk or you'll regret it. The trio stormed off, Greg throwing me an apologetic look over his shoulder. I wasn't backing down, but I wasn't stupid either. That afternoon, I sent a polite email to the entire board, laying out my case with bylaw references and asking for a formal re-VYEW. I also installed a small security camera on my porch, just in case. Days passed, and Margaret took to parading past my house multiple times a day, glaring at the chimes like they'd insulted her personally. No fines showed up, and my email went unanswered. I started to think she'd dropped it. Then came a stormy Tuesday night that turned everything upside down. I was working late in my study when a fierce gust made the chimes sing louder than usual. Moments later, my phone pinged with a security camera alert. I opened the feed and froze. There was Margaret Ellison, in a raincoat, hacking at my chimes with garden shears. She was on my property, in the pouring rain, cutting them down like some kind of vigilante. This wasn't just petty, it was criminal. I ran outside, rain soaking me instantly. Margaret, what the hell are you doing? I shouted, struggling to stay calm. She spun around, clutching the chimes in one hand, shears in the other, her drenched hair plastered to her face. Her eyes were wild, almost unhinged. Enforcing the rules, Mr. Carter, she yelled over the storm. You refuse to comply, so the HOA is handling it. You're trespassing and destroying my property, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Put those down and leave, or I'm calling the police. She let out a harsh, bitter laugh. Go ahead and call them. They'll side with me. Nobody defies my rules in this neighborhood. She started marching toward the street, still gripping my chimes. Those are mine, I called, following at a safe distance. I'm asking you one last time to give them back and go. What happened next was so insane, I'm glad the camera caught it, or no one would have believed me. Margaret whipped around and charged at me, swinging the shears in a reckless arc. I stumbled back, barely dodging the blade. You think you can humiliate me? She screamed, her voice cracking with rage. I've run this place for 12 years. Nobody disrespects me. I backed toward my porch, genuinely scared now. Margaret, you need to stop. This is way out of line. She followed me, still wavvying the shears. You don't belong here if you can't follow the rules, she spat, lunging again. I dodged, but my foot caught on the porch step, and I fell hard. The camera captured it all, Margaret looming over me, shears raised, rain pouring, her face twisted with fury. Just then, headlights cut through the dark as my neighbor Tom pulled into his driveway. He saw the scene and sprinted over, yelling, Hey! Drop those shears right now! Margaret froze, suddenly aware of the witness. I scrambled inside and dialed 911, my hands shaking. The police arrived fast, and by then, Margaret was trying to spin a story to Tom about enforcing HOA regulations. But when the officers watched the security footage, their faces hardened. They questioned her, and I caught snippets like assault with a deadly weapon and criminal trespass. I pressed charges, how could I not? The video was undeniable. Margaret was arrested that night, her pristine image shattered as she was led to the squad car in handcuffs, rain-soaked and stunned. "Do you know who I am?" she kept saying. "I'm the president of the Willow Creek HOA." The officer didn't blink. "Right now, ma'am, you're someone charged with assault and trespassing." The legal process moved quickly. Margaret hired a fancy lawyer, but the footage was her undoing. She pleaded guilty to lesser charges, simple assault and trespassing, to avoid a trial. The judge, clearly fed up with her "I was just doing my job" excuse, hit her with 6 months of probation, mandatory anger management, a DUI 4,000 fine, and a restraining order keeping her 150 feet from me and my property. When the sentence was read, Margaret's face was a mix of shock and denial, like she couldn't believe her reign was over. She turned to her lawyer, whispering frantically, "But it was done. Those wind chimes? They're back on my tree, tinkling away. And Margaret? She's no longer Madam President. The neighborhood's a little freer now, but I'll never forget the night a petty power trip turned into a pair of handcuffs."